So anyway, we're really thrilled to have Lucy Allan from Glasgow, Scotland. I really am excited because I got to go to Glasgow 2 years ago and see the program there and the kind of exciting things they have going on. Lucy popped on.
I wasn't there when
you weren't there,
Glasgow,
which
is crazy.
Right, but yeah. Just for the I don't know, the kinship, the memories, it sparked a lot. So it's really cool when you popped on. We're like, hey, I'm gonna come, and all that. So I'm gonna let her give her background and whatever she wants to speak with us. But again, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Traveling.
Hi, everybody. We made it. It is the end. It is the end of a very intense, brilliant but intense, jam-packed 3 days. So thank you all for still being here, still showing up. I wasn't sure how many people were going to make it today, but this is great. For those of you, I think I've met most people here, but for those of you I haven't met, I am Lucy Allan, and as you can see, I am a lecturer in piano for dance and an accompanist for the Modern Ballet programme at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland in Glasgow. And this is a sort of performing arts higher education institution where we have music, dance, drama, production, and film. So everybody kind of under one roof, which is great because it then facilitates things like a piano for dance programme. So I also, before I really get going, just wanted to sort of take a moment to thank the Guild for having me and for Belhaven University for also being involved, because, you know, I showed up here knowing nobody and I feel like I'm leaving with a whole load of new friends. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you. So I'm here to talk about my PhD. I wear many hats, but I'm mainly wearing the PhD hat for this presentation. My PhD is titled The Pianist in Exile, Exploring Socio-Cultural Experiences of Piano Accompanists for Professional Ballet using the theory of Zygmunt Bauman. Now that is a very long and wordy title, so we will just be calling it The Pianist in Exile, and that's what I normally just call it anyway. And I'm going to sort of unpick what all of that means as we go on through the presentation. It's very early days. I started this in September 2024, and I'm doing it part-time along with my accompaniment and my teaching work. So my graduation date is November 2030. So we are going to be here. You're going to be hearing from me. We are right at the beginning. This is technically, if I were full-time, this would be like January of year one. So I'm really just introducing this to you all at this stage and kind of setting it up so that when you hear from me again, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I am primarily doing this at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, and I have a supervisor, Stephen Broad, who is the head of research and engagement at the Conservatoire, and he is a musician. And I also have a dance academic supervisor, also in the Conservatoire, Dr. Bethany Whiteside. In addition, I have a third supervisor from the University of Glasgow, a sociologist, Professor Matt Dawson. And if that wasn't enough institutions and people, the University of St Andrews confers doctoral degrees at the Conservatoire, so they're in the mix too. So I've got RCS, Glasgow, and St Andrews, and I'm across 3 different disciplines, so there's a whole lot going on, but it's a really kind of great setup. So my kind of research questions or aims for the Pianist in Exile. How do pianists for professional and pre-pro ballet experience ballet culture, what we might call ballet culture? And I'm making that distinction for professional, so like, you know, a company or a vocational training program that sort of leads into a company, because as I have been learning all week, the sort of university dance program landscape is quite different and also much less present in the UK and Europe. So and it's both sort of the culture and the way of teaching and approaches to things that are quite different. So I'm drawing that distinction. I'm looking at companies and pre-professional feeder training programs for companies. This environment, as any of you who have worked in these kind of environments will know, it's a niche. It's a kind of highly specific, codified environment with like very specific things that are normal and acceptable and some things that aren't so much. Just take the phrase studio etiquette, for example. You know, my ballet people, or you know, beyond that even, will know what that means. It's kind of like, you know, specific ways that we expect people to show up and to behave in the ballet studio. And yeah, as I say here, and what we consider normal and acceptable in these kind of settings is really guided by explicit rules like studio etiquette, but then also kind of unspoken social expectations and cultural norms in the ballet setting. And that's really what I'm interested in kind of digging deeper in. So we have existing kind of social research in what we might call ballet culture. That's what I'm calling it. We have kind of sociological research that looks at issues like body image, surveillance. There's a really interesting study about the presence of mirrors in studio and how that sort of impacts participants. Dancers' sense of discipline, their relationships with authority, their senses of identity, their attitudes about health, illness, injury, their sort of personal and professional relationships and all of this kind of cultural stuff. But all of the existing academic social research that we have in this field kind of focuses on how these factors affect dancers and, to a slightly lesser extent, dance teachers. And that makes sense, right? They are the kind of majority of people in that space. However, accompanists are in there too. That's not there for no reason. Accompanists are in the studio and they're part of that environment and they're participating and they're there. And so what I want to look at in my PhD is how and where do the accompanists fit into this very kind of particular niche environment. Because yes, we're there, but we're not dancers. And so that's a kind of unique position to be in that space. I'm going to take a little detour and sort of introduce myself before I go any further so that it kind of will make sense to you all why I'm doing this and who I am and how I've ended up here. So I've been a piano accompanist for nearly 15 years, which, hard to believe, I know, baby face, but I have. I'm primarily now based at the Conservatoire on their Modern Ballet programme, but I also regularly freelance at Scottish Ballet, which is our national ballet company, and I've worked beyond English National Ballet School. I've worked with Elmhurst in Birmingham, kind of a bit of freelancing all over. So yeah, that's my kind of piano accompaniment side of things. I'm also a lecturer on the Conservatoire's Master of Music Piano for Dance programme, which I'm going to elaborate a bit more on later. And the point I want to make at this moment is that accompanist, pianist, musician are really kind of fundamental to my professional identity. Like, I really consider myself a practitioner, a doer. I don't know if it kind of outshines any other, but it's certainly equal to any sort of capacity I have as a researcher. I am absolutely a musician, and I was a musician first before becoming a researcher. However, I also hold a MA Honours SOCSI in Sociology and Philosophy from Glasgow University. So what happened there was I did loads of youth music. I got to 18 years old and I thought, oh my God, I'm so tired. I don't want to do any more music ever again in my life. Release me. And I went to civilian university and, didn't go down the music college route. And I thought, I just need to do something else. And it's because I did that I then found my way back to music. I needed that break. But in that time, I really learned to get curious about social dynamics, about cultures and ideologies and how people behave with each other in a space and what might be driving that behavior that we can't immediately see. And yeah, I think like Dr. Beckley said earlier, curiosity is the sort of driver of all scholarship, and really that is so true for me. And so when I then kind of hard swerved back into music and started working in a professional ballet environment, I was like, what is going on? And because I had that social science background, I really was like, no, let's get the notebook out. What is going on? So yeah, music and dance are the kind of backdrop of this research project, but this isn't a creative endeavor. This is a kind of sociological project about people and their experiences of making music and dance in a very specific environment. So I would say that I am uniquely well-placed to do this research. My sort of dual identity as a practitioner and my sort of practical technical expertise in dance accompaniment, coupled with my background in philosophy and sociology, mean that I feel quite good about doing this kind of interrogative research project about ballet culture. And again, I'm going to point to Dr. Beckley, who really nicely talked about autoethnography and reflexivity in her presentation, which was great, because I'm like, great, you've set that up, because that is also the kind of basis and the ethos of my research. I'm looking at things that are familiar to me and kind of like defamiliarizing them and sort of unpicking them and looking at what's really going on. And yeah, I'm very well supported to do that because, as I mentioned, I've got a musician, a dancer, a sociologist across multiple institutions. It's really kind of like the perfect cocktail of supervision support for me. So yeah, that's a bit about me that explains how we got here. So yeah, early days, January of year one, if you want to call it that. I am going to sort of do a bit of preamble today because there's not a lot of what you might call findings at this incredibly early stage. I'm just kind of taking stock at the moment and only sort of very recently starting to kind of produce anything. So today I'm going to talk about personal motivations and practical implications. So totally came up with that first because it rhymed. And so I'm going to talk about personal motivations, you know, what pushed me to really pursue this, and why is it important to me as a musician and as a practitioner of dance accompaniment, and hopefully why it could be important to other dance accompaniment practitioners. Practical implications, I'm going to look a bit at my teaching hat, and you know, how can my research then go on to impact my teaching that I do at the Conservatoire and potentially further teaching of piano for dance as a subject? And this is quite good because we talked about that in the business meeting this morning of, you know, pooling resources for teaching this incredibly niche skill. So I hope that this will be relevant. Okay, so personal motivations. I want to kind of open this with an anecdote that I find really funny. And if you don't find it funny, that's okay, because the next slide explains why it's funny. So don't worry. So a few years ago, I was accompanying a workshop that was being given by a former principal dancer at Scottish Ballet. And she was kind of introducing all the staff in the room. And then she turned to me and she said to these participants, who were all children, she said, and accompanying us today on the piano, we have the beautiful Lucy Allan. And I was like, what? No, like, no one, okay, no one's laughing. Don't worry, we've got the next slide. So no one, it felt so alien to me that somebody would, in a professional capacity, introduce me as the beautiful Lucy Allan, not in like a self-esteem way or in a kind of like, you know, oh no, I'm not, but more just like, how is this? what's this got to, it just really took me aback. And I was like, oh, okay, the beautiful Lucy Allan, here we go. And it wasn't the first time that I had sort of brushed up against ballet culture in this way, but it was just such an obvious crystallizing moment when I reflected on it afterwards that I thought it would be a good example. So what did I learn? Okay, so here's the joke. So what did I learn from this incredibly strange interaction? She wasn't commenting on my appearance at all. She wasn't saying anything about how I looked or kind of my physicality or anything. Concepts like beauty in a setting like ballet has a kind of specific meaning and then a value placed upon that meaning. Like, beauty in ballet is like a professional quality, almost, Like, if you describe somebody's dancing as beautiful, it's like, you're doing the job correctly. And this is sort of, I think, what this dancer was trying to say about me and the music that I can provide for ballet class. She kind of was experiencing the beauty of the music that I play, and because making any sort of art is so kind of personal and bound up with ourselves, we get the beautiful Lucy Allan. And it's funny because can you imagine somebody in any other kind of workplace setting, performing your surgery today? We have the beautiful Dr. Smith. Like, exactly, now you're laughing. So that's what I'm getting at. Something that was completely innocuous and totally normalized and actually fine and understandable in here would be bizarre in another setting. That's my point. So I'm glad I got you to laugh in the end and see the absurdity with me. So, as an accompanist, yeah, if it had been made elsewhere, would be weird. As a non-dancer, I kind of come from elsewhere. I've not been like marinating in the world of ballet, and that's kind of, I'm jumping ahead here, that's kind of my next point. But it's my job to understand. It's my job to kind of get what she was trying to say. And I did. If I had turned around and been like, hey, don't comment on my appearance, that would have just caused way more problems than it would have solved. So it's my job to kind of get, okay, she means kind of the music and the work. And like, this is what I'm interested in. This is the heart of my PhD. Moments like this, where somebody who doesn't come from this ballet background comes up against what is considered to be kind of normal and acceptable, and how you kind of negotiate those experiences. And yeah, I have included this picture of the one time I tried on pointe shoes. This is the beautiful Lucy Allan that you see behind you. Don't look at my feet. I really thought my ankles were gonna break. Like, what? Yeah, it was never again. So I've kind of jumped ahead here. And now I want you to think, whatever your kind of relationship with dance is, whatever you do, wherever your background lies, think about how old you were when you first entered the world of dance. And if you're a musician, you were probably an adult, or kind of close to adulthood, right? Think about a couple of dancers in here. Think about when you entered the world of dance. I imagine it was probably, sorry? Perfect example, yeah. Any musicians enter the world of ballet age 4? 7?
My sister danced.
Cool, okay.
And I wanted to, but my uncle said, no, you don't.
Oh, I'm sorry. So my cousin also was a professional dancer, so I kind of also have this brush up with ballet, like a little bit younger than normal. I also have been saying to people all week, I worked in a local ballet studio, that was like my high school job. So actually I kind of disproved my own argument a little bit. I've been hanging around ballet studios from like quite a young age, but most musicians are older than their dancer colleagues when they come in a professional capacity. Training for a career in ballet begins really young, as we've seen. You know, we have professional run programs for children in the single digits. At Scottish Ballet, you can join the associate program, which is the sort of pre-pro youth training program. You can join from, I think, 8 years old. And at the Conservatoire, we have a similar youth program. It's like all the same staff and stuff. It's kind of, you know, the same thing. And they can join, I think, as young as 7. So super, super young to be inducted into this career. And so then ballet culture becomes part of just their overall development. You know, kids, maybe some do, but most kids maybe don't have that like, moment that I had as an adult. Because it's just, you know, it's their first time on earth. Everything's new for them, including the ballet, and so they're just absorbing it. And yeah, then we have, even more interestingly, people who go on to become professional dancers. They then become the teachers of the next generation. And so we kind of end up with this circular reproduction of what has come already. And I know that there are so many teachers kind of doing a lot of really good cycle breaking work. So I'm not, that this is not to discredit that at all. But generally we have this kind of, you know, dancer to educator pipeline, I'm calling it. And so that means that you have, you know, choreographers, rehearsal directors, artistic directors, teachers who have been essentially training for their job since they were 4 years old. And again, if you imagine like a lawyer or something, 4-year-olds in like lawyers, you know, it's a very specific thing. And it's quite unique. And I know, I guess another comparison would be like professional athletes, which of course dancers are sort of part of that umbrella, but you know, like football players and basketball players, and you know, they're in a similar boat. They've been training for their job for life. Musicians come later, as I've said. Here's some of the stuff that I was doing while my little cousin was training to be a professional dancer. I was, you know, holding a pool cube with questionable technique, for one thing. So yeah, musicians tend to arrive later on. And not only do we come generally later, but we don't have so much of a one pipeline into dance accompaniment. As I know from speaking to everybody all weekend, everybody in here has quite a unique background, a unique trajectory, a unique set of experiences, and I would kind of wager that these are perhaps more varied than the trajectories of professional ballet dancers that I work with and have experienced back in the UK and Europe, where really it's like pre-pro to company, and that's the pipeline. So then I kind of want to ask, well then what is our place in this ecosystem? I've already kind of touched on that circular, you know, dancer to educator thing. Where do we come in? Can we like jump in? This is why I asked for the mic cable to, but you know, can we disrupt that? Can we sneak in any way? How much are we even kind of shaped by this culture, given our kind of unique relationship to it? Do we have any power to kind of shape the culture back, given our place? I don't know. These are the questions. Another thing I kind of want to talk about, these are, I didn't really say this, these are like things I noticed that made me want to start researching this. So like the beautiful Lucy Allan comment, thinking about, wait a minute, I'm like seeing kids before my eyes like grow up to become professionals. And now this, these are all like, these are factors that made me think like, oh, there's a research project in this. So my final kind of one of these is this sort of alone in a crowded room aspect, I'm calling it. Ballet is usually a kind of group activity. We've got, you train as a team, you take class together in a company, you rehearse, even if it's like, a coaching or a variation, everyone kind of sits around the side and is part of that. And of course, they all perform together. I think there are, just as a side note, I think there's like so many wonderful things about learning and training in this way that I think musicians really kind of miss out on and could benefit from a little bit more. But that's somebody else's PhD. Anyway, we don't have that as ballet accompanists. I was about to be like, there's one piano in this room, there's currently two. But in a normal ballet class, there's usually one accompanist. And they are, at least as you can see from my little mirror selfie, this is the Darrell studio in Scottish Ballet's HQ. It's a massive studio. And I'm like, you can't really see it in this picture, but I am like miles away. They look, trust me, they look closer than they are. I'm miles away and I'm by myself and they're all together. And this just is, I could do a whole presentation on just the kind of experiences and dynamics that emerge out of that thing alone, but had to condense it. And even though it would be easy to interpret me saying this as like, oh, this is so terrible, but actually, like, sometimes it's good and it's like, I like it. So this is why I've got, lonely but liberating. Sure, sometimes it does throw up negative experiences or feelings of isolation or feelings of being an outsider or not sure where you belong. But also, I look at some of the experiences of my professional ballet colleagues and I think, I'm so glad that I don't have to do that. I'm so glad that I'm just kind of removed from some of the troubles that they're experiencing as a result of being such a tight-knit community. I think, oh, it's quite nice being, by myself over here. And a small anecdote that I think really illustrates this, and it was a really illuminating moment for me to reflect. I did, at the beginning of this year, I did an engagement, an outreach project with Scottish Ballet called The Close. And it was a kind of multidisciplinary movement, filmmaking, music project where we worked with kids from a school in Scotland called CMAB, which is for children that have been disengaged from mainstream school. And we brought them into our building and we kind of created this really sort of communal, democratic project together. And it was really beautiful and very challenging, but also incredibly rewarding and moving. And I was so out of my depth. This was not like a traditional ballet environment at all. This was very kind of adapted and tailored to the needs of the children that we had. And something that just knocked me right back was the amount of attention I received in that space. I was not ready. I was included in every single piece of the action. I was, kids would come up to me, they would like touch me, they would like ask me questions while I was doing stuff. They would like, the kids were great. I'm not dissing the kids, but it was really tough because when we did movement activities that didn't require music, I was expected to come and do the movement activities, which just like, my knees are still like cracking. But I think what I realized was, oh, well, yeah, because these are kids with like really complex emotional problems and needs and, have experienced past trauma. And in a setting like that, that's meant to be sort of nurturing and safe and helping their development, you can't just have like the Phantom sitting on the piano, like not, you know, oh, who's that over there? Oh, don't worry about her. She's just like doing the music. You know, you can't have that. That doesn't create an environment where those kids are going to feel safe or, you know, uninhibited. So of course, like, I had to be part of it, but I found it exhausting because I've never, in a normal ballet class, whether it's, you know, the Modern Ballet program at the Conservatoire, or whether it's a company class at Scottish Ballet, or a youth class that's, you know, preparing them for that life, no one bothers me. I get to just do my job with a lot of responsibility, but also a lot of autonomy. If I can pull it off, I kind of get to do whatever I want, and I love that. And in this other setting, the outreach setting, musically, I still had that degree of freedom, but I had to be so on. I felt like I was maybe lacking in training to kind of deal with the more kind of interpersonal side of that work. And just the amount of attention I received and the amount I was expected to participate and be present in the room, not as the accompanist, but as me, was, well, I got home at the end of every session and lay on the floor for an hour and then got on with my life. And I would do that job again tomorrow. But this kind of alone in a crowd, back to the ballet class, this kind of alone in a crowded room thing, it's not all bad. I think I have personally experienced massive benefits from just being left to get on with it. This nicely leads me to the Zygmunt Bauman part of introducing my PhD. And I'm not going to kind of dwell on this for too long, and I'm also looking at the clock and we're way over time. But basically, as a kind of sociology endeavor, my PhD requires me to engage with like social theory. And my first introduction to the work of Zygmunt Bauman, who was a Polish sociologist who eventually ended up in Leeds in England, and that's where he died, I think maybe 8 to 10 years ago. I was first introduced to him during my undergraduate degree, and it was actually my sociology supervisor for my PhD now who, during my undergraduate, introduced me to this work. And I think it's really nice that I kind of brought him on board for this, because he's like the Bauman guy at Glasgow University. Bauman has this concept called exile that I think kind of really nicely captures the dance accompanist situation. And that's why I'm using it as a kind of theoretical lens through which to understand the practical stuff of my research. Bauman says that exile means to be inside and outside at the same time, to combine intimacy with the critical look of an outsider, involvement with detachment. I feel like if that doesn't say like piano for ballet, I don't know what does. So yeah, The Pianist in Exile, saying the name of the movie in the movie. So the exile is in but not of their social surroundings. That's another like perfect quote that I love. They're in but not of the space. So what that means is that they're kind of exposed to various environments, ways of being, social influences, and this kind of affects the exile's relationship with any single one of those environments. And I think that really captures where we are as musicians for dance. We're in the dance environment, but we perhaps haven't been made by it in the same way that our dance colleagues have. We have like a genuinely deep understanding of the artistic practices and social norms in ballet, but we literally have an alternative perspective. You know, I've just spent 5 minutes talking about how we're sat in a different part of the room by ourselves. You know, we literally have an alternative perspective. And it's not to say, the exile, it's a bit of a misnomer to say that they're like, it's not exactly being an outsider, it's partly being an outsider, but we are insiders too. The crux of exile is that we're both. And so that's why I'm using this kind of theoretical framework, and it's also why I've titled it The Pianist in Exile. So now we move on to practical implications of this research. What am I going to do with this in my teaching? So think about how you all learned to do this. This is one of my favorite diagrams of all time. So yeah, just have a look at this. I'm not going to read it all out, just have a look, have a look. In about the space of maybe under a minute, right, in a ballet class, the ballet teacher will give this kind of like, you know, shorthand verbal instruction. They'll maybe kind of move around a bit to show the dancers what to do. And this is like heightened in a company class. I've had teachers that kind of just go, and it's like, okay. And, you know, we've all heard the your own pliés. So, yeah, we have, in such a short time, we have to kind of process what we've just seen and instantly turn it into music. And whether you play tunes or you improvise or you do a combination of both, you are using all of these skills. You know, you have to understand the ballet steps, what they mean. You have to understand not just what the words mean, but what the movement is and then what that then demands of the music. You have to kind of be a bit psychic with the ballet teacher and interpret their tone of their voice, you know, and a 1, and a 2, and a 3, and 4 is something very specific, you know, versus and a 1, and 2, and 3, even, you know, very different. You also have to kind of get how ballet class generally works, so that when you hear your own pliés, you know what that means. You then have to think about what to play. After all that, you then have to think, well, what am I actually going to play? And that requires like advanced piano skills, ability to select appropriate repertoire, and then to kind of like shape it into the musical accompaniment. And all of that happened so fast that I felt like this how to draw an owl diagram just perfectly captured what's going on there. It's such a highly niche and highly skilled profession. And yet most dance accompanists just learn to do it as they go. Like, and I don't know how many, and I genuinely don't know how many other highly technical, highly skilled professions kind of have this model of learning. Probably some, but I don't know. So we kind of have these like, you know, scattered around. We have sort of various handbooks and manuals and guides that aim to supplement that and kind of fill a gap that's there as a result of there not being a kind of that universal pipeline into dance accompaniment that I mentioned earlier. But the thing that I find so interesting about these texts that we have, these kind of handbooks and manuals, and I'm sure that some of you will be familiar with the books that I'm sort of referring to, they give a lot of technical and creative advice and sort of talk about the ballet class and how it works and music and movement. But there's also like quite a lot of airtime given in these texts about like just how to behave in that setting. And I like find that really interesting. There's a lot about how to kind of form rapport with ballet teachers and how to be respectful to dancers, how to manage relationships, what kind of demeanor and attitude are considered appropriate, and just like how to be in this environment. I want to give you some quotes from Harriet Cavalli's Dance and Music, which is kind of like the holy grail of like these sorts of texts. If you're not familiar with it, it's a massive big book full of lots of really kind of valuable knowledge about dance accompaniment. But here are some of the quotes from her about like behavior. So yeah, an element of top-notch dance accompaniment is assessing the mood of a class and how to deal with it. That's not a musical skill. That's like that's a people skill. That's a kind of emotional, social skill. If you're one of those people who are prone to bad days, try to keep it to yourself. That's certainly not a musical skill. That's a social skill. I have learned through experience to help only when I am asked. Once again, a kind of emotional, social, and I am not, I can see some faces, and you're right to be making these are the faces I made when I was reading it. I'm not presenting these to be like, and let's not criticize, let's not unpack that. But I am presenting these to show that in these kind of how-to ballet accompaniment texts, we have people weighing in on ballet culture and what they kind of think to be socially acceptable behavior in the studio. So only help when asked. That's a kind of comment on authority and who gets to be proactive and who has to kind of be more subservient. Keep your bad days to yourself. That's a comment about sort of like compartmentalization and the sort of, what an ethos of like maybe discipline or, that kind of side of things. So whether she meant to or not, Cavalli is sort of weighing in on what she interprets as ballet culture. And so like, I want to do something with that. I want to like put this in writing, and actually do some research and be like, well, what is it that's going on? I want to basically like surface the stuff that sort of comes up as if by, kind of out of thin air in the kind of how-to texts. I want to actually say, well, where did these things come from? How did we get to a point where this is the acceptable sort of way to conduct yourself in a ballet setting, and so on. And I've always been interested in these kind of topics, but I've really been galvanized since I started to teach, because now I feel like I have a responsibility to prepare students for a successful career in ballet. It's my job now to induct newer, less experienced musicians and prepare them to be successful. And like, it's been so interesting, because starting to teach has really kind of held a mirror up to me, and anyone else who teaches, I'm sure, has seen that mirror held up to them. It really forced me to kind of confront that maybe I'm not as much of an outsider in ballet as I thought, because when I see a music student commit a faux pas, I'm stressed. Because I then suddenly kind of stopped and was like, well, why am I stressed? Oh, it's because I've actually now internalized a lot of this too. I'm in it. I'm not as much of, I kind of started out with this notion of the exile as an outsider who's in a kind of interloper. And then when I started teaching and I was bringing in new people, I was like, oh, I'm the insider now, but yet there's still this part of me that's not fully embedded. And when I teach, it's really tricky, and this is, in any kind of vocational education, this is such a balancing act. I don't want to teach students to just passively accept anything that might happen to them. We all have horror stories. We all have horror stories of a kind of an unsavory interaction in the studio where somebody has maybe behaved less than cordially towards us. And I don't want, as I feel like sometimes I experienced as a student, I don't want to turn around to my students and say, well, that's just kind of how it goes. But at the same time, I do want to prepare them for like the reality. And I also want to kind of set some professional expectations for them so that they can be productive and have successful working relationships and everyone can sort of do their best work. So that's where the kind of criticality aspect of this comes in. I want students to kind of notice their surroundings, not just learn how to play a plie, but to notice what's going on around them, kind of assess the mood, as Cavalli would say, to kind of understand the experiences of their collaborators that are going to be different from their own experiences. You know, what kind of unique vulnerabilities do the dancers have in that space? Does the dance teacher have in that space? But I also want them to then use that critical thought to engage in a sort of constructive dialogue about the working practices and relationships from a place of being informed and from a place of knowing, look, I see where you're coming from, but let's talk about it. So I kind of want to say to them, like, yeah, this is how it is, but you can do something with that. You're not just like a jukebox, you know? So, like, you know, you're as much of a person in the room as anyone else. It took me like quite a while to figure that out, but maybe that's just me. So, the impact of this is not only on students' like behavior and etiquette and relationships. This kind of thinking can also affect students' sort of creative output when they start to accompany ballet classes. It can affect their musical choices. For example, when's a good time to subvert the form? I'll give you an example. I had a really creative student that I was teaching who didn't have a background in dance accompaniment, but he was an improviser, and he was a natural. There was just music just coming out of him. And he would come to me with all these amazing ideas, and he'd say, oh, hey, what if I played this for a tendu? And I kind of had to say to him, like, look, I love this, but if you go in on your first day and you do this for tendu, whoever's teaching you is going to think, he doesn't know what a tendu is. He's just, you know, loving life. So a similar example, right, from the same, this is like less of a kind of extreme one, but the same student came to me with an idea. I think it was like for some kind of adagey thing. And it was like a right-hand accompaniment, left-hand melody. And it was like, again, it was beautiful. Like the student was so talented. The musical, the compositional skills were not in question at all. But I was like, well, look, why don't you do the first 16, the other, like the normal way, and then when you develop the material, stick it in the left hand. And instead of them kind of being hit at the very beginning with that slightly unusual subverted sound, they're going to be eased gently into the exercise, and they're going to, you know, intuit what's happening, kind of feel like everything's running smoothly, and then when you flip it, they're going to go, ooh. So my point is that sometimes it's good to sort of hold a few cards and then show the cards later on as you develop your improvisation. And these kind of things come from thinking about the experiences of the other people in the room and not just thinking of yourself as like a solo musician. Bit of an easier question. When's a bad time to play rep in class? Anyone? Yes?
If they're doing Swan Lake, don't play Swan Lake in class.
100%. A+ for you, Suzanne. Yeah. If they're doing the rep at that current moment, don't play the rep in class, especially if it's like Swan Lake or Nutcracker or like, you know, the big ones everyone's heard. I'm not saying it can never work. As a musician, you'll know your individual people better than I can sort of say. But as a kind of, what I'm encouraging is to like, for students to think about that stuff. Could I get away with playing Swan Lake? Probably not. Okay, let's play something else. So yes, I'm kind of training students to how to be as people, but I'm also sort of thinking about getting them to make informed musical choices and using that critical thought to then impact the playing as well. So it is kind of like, that is sort of a creative endeavor. This is where I kind of do another little detour to just talk about, well, yeah, okay, this is kind of what I'm trying to do already at the Conservatoire. So I am now a lecturer in ballet class accompaniment there. I specialize in improvisation. I started off just teaching a kind of supplementary improvisation sort of course, but now I am kind of being put in charge of getting them to do ballet class as a whole. Similarly, I also teach an introductory ballet class accompaniment module for regular piano performance students, which is a lot of fun. And I encourage them to think about this stuff from the very beginning, before they've even played a note. And that can sometimes even be more important for performance students that don't have any experience, because they're sort of thinking about that stuff even less and tend to be more kind of like, you know, I want to make new and groundbreaking music, and like the beginning of ballet class is not always the place to make new and groundbreaking music. So it's really important, even at like absolute beginner level, to start baking this stuff into the curriculum. I'm also a graduate of the Piano for Dance program, which makes me ask, is it a pyramid scheme? I don't know. I think a lot of, yeah, I can see some fist bumps up. Yeah. I think many of us have probably asked ourselves that question about some sort of artistic work at some point. But anyway, yeah, I am also a graduate of the program, and quite a recent graduate, so I remember what it was like, and I really try to use that memory of what it was like to inform what I do. So we have like traditional one-to-one lessons. Students come in and shadow, sit and watch, maybe try something. And now that sort of I'm a little bit more like behind the wheel, I'm introducing something I'm really excited about called studio simulations, where we have a teacher and some dancers and a student pianist, but it's all about the pianist, and we can stop and we can do something again, and we can get feedback from the dance teachers and even the dance students about what, you know, how did it feel, what could be better, what worked, what veered off course. So yeah, that's kind of the teaching models that we have on the Piano for Dance program. And excitingly, it is in partnership with Scottish Ballet, so students get like company experience sort of midway through the program as well, which is really valuable. I would say what I got out of studying in this way, and I'm quite a sort of advocate, we've been talking a lot about advocacy this week. I'm quite an advocate for sort of like taking a chunk of time and really dedicating it to like, okay, I'm here to get better at this. Because I too started learning on the job. I learned on the job for, I can't do maths, but quite a lot of years before I then went to do the Piano for Dance program. And I'd learned a lot on the job, but it was so valuable to be enrolled on a course where there were dedicated people, dedicated facilities, and dedicated time for me to actually dive into some of it and be able to think about things without being in survival mode, just trying to get through it. So my piano skills developed, my intentionality and creative choices is probably the thing that developed the most, because like I say, I had time to kind of try different things and interrogate what worked, what didn't, under the guidance of people with more experience. And it was a total crash course in professional expectations in like a professional or pre-pro ballet setting. Because I had just done sort of hobby ballet and syllabus, like RAD, Cicchetti classes before coming into like the big leagues. So, and also as you saw, I hadn't been to music school. So there was so much in the mix when I came to do that course of just like, I had to kind of rewire my brain to like, you know, not fit in, but like meet the professional standards of that kind of environment. There we go. So, some concluding thoughts, and thank you. You have all stayed with me very well. I know the whole day is kind of overtime, and it's the last day, and it's 4:30 in the afternoon. So I appreciate everyone still kind of being present. We're almost there. When I did my Piano for Dance Masters, I had to write a reflective piece of writing about how I thought the year had gone. And it was 2019 to 20, so it was a really interesting year, you know. I was writing this in June 2020, so just a crazy time all round. And I got feedback on my reflective writing from an external examiner whose name has come up at various points in the conference, Kim Helveg from Norway. Norway? Copenhagen in Norway, yeah. Yeah, Kim Helveg in Denmark. And he said about my reflective writing, a lot of interesting topics are raised, and easily those topics could find their way to seminars and workshops about music and be starting points for important discussions for professionals, dancers, teachers, musicians. 5 years later, we're here, we're doing it, we're having important discussions about the stuff that I was starting, the seed was germinating in my master's. So it's great that you're all part of that. It's so rare, as you will all know, to get to speak in front of a kind of expert dance accompaniment audience. When I have kind of presented things back home, I have to do a big preamble where I explain what ballet is. It's great to not have to do that. It's so wonderful. I feel like my explanation fatigue is kind of lifting. So yeah, this is what Kim Helveg said about my kind of reflections from back then. So we're doing it now. So basically, I hope that this research, which is in the total early stages of its life, will be able to surface professional expectations for ballet pianists. I hope we can shed light on these pianists' experience of the professional expectations placed upon them, and shed light of how they feel related or not to the workplace culture that they are in, ballet culture. I hope as well that we can sort of bridge gaps in knowledge and communication and understanding between musicians and dance practitioners. Particularly, about the kind of more hidden stuff. Other people have done great work sort of trying to bridge the communication gaps about technical aspects like time signatures and music and movement and all of these things, which is really good. I want to sort of bridge the parallel communication gap in some of the social and cultural stuff that's in the mix there. And finally, I hope that this will empower musicians in ballet to kind of show up and help set the tone in the room, and to be equal collaborators, and to feel like that they can have a bit of an input in how things are run, and that they do have something to offer to their dance colleagues, and that the dance colleagues will be receptive to this kind of alternative perspective. Thank you so much for listening. This has been such a pleasure, and I am very happy to take questions, but if everyone is absolutely dead, I also completely understand. So, yeah.
I love this whole topic. It seems so amazing. It's like the sort of the elephant in the room with me as a modern accompanyist all the time, and these are like the things I care deeply about. They're like just always in the background. So it's an amazing topic. I had a really quick question about the ballet, like the simulation classes. Sounds like a really cool idea.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, because like my dad teaches pilots, and he's able to in the simulator go like, okay, you have an engine fire now, and it's suddenly like, I'm wondering if you're like throw nightmare scenarios at them intentionally to help them figure out how to deal with curveballs.
I hadn't thought of this. So this is like, we haven't run this yet. I got sort of, how do I put, like, I got sort of bumped up to doing this like during the summer. So I'm going to be going home and going back in September and starting this. So, you know, I can report back of how it goes. It might be a total disaster. I don't think it will be, but it could be. So we haven't done this yet. This is starting as of September. I hadn't considered throwing them nightmare scenarios, but now, because I was just imagining we would sort of run a class as it would go and then see what emerged from that. But as I'm saying this, I'm like, I feel like some nightmare scenarios might just crop up organically anyway. So I don't think I need to really do much work in that department.
I want to put a plug in for the name of our organization, because we, at the first conference, had a very intense discussion about the name of this group. And the name Guild became the name we decided on rather than group or organization or whatever. And I want to read the definition of guild from AI. A guild is an association of artisans, merchants, or others with a common trade, craft, or interest formed to protect their professional interests, ensure quality, and provide mutual aid. And I think that is perfectly what you're doing here, and I think it's great that you're presenting this to the Guild, because I think it's very Guild-like for you to be offering this sort of instruction. But I also have a beef to pick. Wait. I guess it's late. I have a beef.
You've got beef with me.
I have a bone to pick within a beef. In that, over the years, I've been very disturbed in trying to fight against the drop of the I, the second I in our acronym.
There is no I in
Because it used to be IGMD. And we had a lot of discussion about that pronoun. Is it of, or for, or in?
Oh.
And in was a very, what's the word? Conscious decision to have that pronoun, because we are in dance. We're not of dance.
But you're not of it. Yep.
We're not the person in the corner. We're
Yeah.
not for dance. We're in dance.
Yeah.
And I want to move that we get that second I back in our acronym. So anyway, blah, blah, blah.
I would support that. I think it's really...
No, it doesn't look as nice.
I think it's IGMD. I think it's really interesting that I kind of have come to all of you and I didn't know any of you. I was sort of like familiar with some of your work, but by and large, didn't know any of you until this weekend. And yet you're kind of saying, oh, you're sort of doing guild-like work, and the fact that I have a whole thing about, yes, we're in but not of, and you're like, well, this was a really conscious choice. We also, you know, we had this conversation here as well. Like, I think that's really kind of serendipitous, and I'm really happy that you think it like is a good sort of fit for this, this group.
I also think you could be a stand-up comedian.
You know what? It's been a secret pipe dream of other. I'm so happy you said that, because I've never done stand-up, and it's always been like, oh, this is the year I'm going to do it, and then I never do it. So, well, what's the deal with there? No, I don't know. Yeah, thank you. That means more than any of the stuff you said about Dad. Yeah, thank you so much.
Can I just say one quick thing?
Yeah, sure, Pat. So we're gonna give us
Just on the end, and the reason why that resonated with me is that this Stevie Wonder lyric, one of my favorite songs. When you say you're in it but not of it, just make sure that when you say you're in it but not of it, you're not making this space into a thing sometimes called hell. Ooh. So the Stevie Wonder song, Key of Life, that has that lyric in it. And when I first heard it, I didn't understand it, but it's come up over the years. And this is another application.
Can you say the lyric again?
So make sure when you say you're in it but not of it, you're not making this space into a thing sometimes called hell.
Oh, wow.
Whoa. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Was that?
That's from the Stevie Wonder song?
Yeah,
Key of Life, did you say?
Yes,
That's the album.
Key of Life album. I must sing the whole song in my head to get to the lyrics.
Jeff's on it.
You just go ahead with your question.
Yeah.
He's trying to redeem himself for the end.
So I assume this might be something, a question that comes up in your research, and if it does, I would love if you could update on us, because I would be very interested to hear what are the effects on the sociological environment of having an exile in it. Because I think that would go to a lot of what we've been talking about, right? And that would be like, so what is the difference? You know, what does that do for the, you know, there?
I am so glad that you've said that, because I think it kind of really nicely articulates, like, there's like a big ball of yarn in my head that's that thought, and you have just like untangled the ball of yarn with that way of saying it. So I thank you. I think, yeah, the effect of the exile being there is definitely something I want to explore. I didn't talk much about methods here. I kind of didn't, there was too much material anyway, but I sort of didn't really talk about how I'm actually going to do it. And so kind of a big method is going to be what we'd call autoethnography, where I'm kind of analysing and reflecting on my own experiences. I'm lucky enough that I did loads of journaling during my master's about kind of how I was experiencing all of these new things for the first time. And it's amazing because I didn't know I would end up doing this. And so I have all of this incredible kind of stuff from the past about how I was experiencing coming into this world for the first time. So that's one way. I'm going to be talking to other musicians about this. I haven't really decided what the scope of that is going to be, but I will definitely, it's not just about me. I want to hear from other people. But I also, and this is kind of pertinent to what you were saying, I want to talk to dancers as well about how they experience us experiencing them. So yeah, it is absolutely going to be a feature, and yeah, be happy to update you.
Yeah, I just also, this is bringing up for me a really interesting thing experiencing this weekend, in that I think this for me may be the first time I've experienced some dance pianists who have, I guess you said you were playing first, but who have come through some of these programs and who have that way of training.
Yeah.
And you and Bill, and forgive me if I'm leaving anybody else out, are really wonderful examples of what that training can be and do. And that's been really exciting to see, and to like, yeah, to think about like,
Thank you.
Is that, you know, how is that going to happen? Because, you know, again, the rest of us, or so many of us have felt, you know, we learned on the job, and that's such an important part of the thing. You're going to have to, you know, do it a lot and be bad at it sometimes, you know, and all that stuff. But to just see the strength and the power of that is cool.
I'm really, thank you. I'm so glad to hear that is kind of translated. I'd like to think I'm a sort of good advert for the program, both as like an educator, but also like a former student now playing. But yeah, I think there is value in having some sort of like, I'm not going to say formal, but structured education around this kind of thing to sort of scaffold and eventually build upon the on-the-job skills that people learn.
Well, and Mariana was a student of Kim Helvig.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Have you looked at, there might be some ballet pianists who were ballet dancers and then became pianists.
Yeah, I'm going to say that into the mic for the Zoom. Looking at ballet dancers who then became pianists. Yeah, that's like a really interesting one. And I know like that Bill is in
Oh, he's the kind of person.
sort of, I don't know if he sort of, what his timeline is, but I know he has done both.
He had a minor, his major was piano and saxophone,
Right.
and his minor was dance.
Okay, so yeah, a bit of both kind of concurrently.
Which then led him to the master's in dance accompaniment.
Oh.
Conservatory, sort of.
No, well,
Right.
our,
Who knows?
yeah.
I don't know. I'm talking about my hands.
I think, yeah, the dancer pianist, like one person thing is definitely an interesting like case study that would be like really interesting. Because that's like you're in and of, but also not of, and there's, you know, there's two, you know, Stevie Wonders like exploding somewhere. Like there's just, so yeah, that's a really good point that there are people who have kind of both. So yeah.
Wasn't Claudia a dancer? Claudia Queen, Howard Queen, wasn't she a dancer as well?
Maybe,
I think so, in New York. She was a dancer and a musician. Tom Cantock danced with Hanya Holm.
Oh, right here. Here you go.
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry.
Suzanne, ask Claudia. Oh, no, she stepped away from her.
Oh!
Camera's on, but she stepped away.
Oh, okay. Who did I just mention? Well, and Natalie danced. Oh, Tom Cantock danced with Hanya Holm. And there was someone else in my brain. Amanda Hidalgo. She's yeah, she was a dancer, right?
Yeah, she danced.
I can't remember who she danced with, but she was a dancer. Mariana was a dancer.
Oh, she was.
Yeah.
Oh.
So,
Claudia's back.
oh, Claudia, can you ask her?
You can.
Oh, I can? Can she hear me? Oh, Claudia, we were identifying musicians who had also been dancers, and I seem to recall that you were a dancer in New York and also a musician. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, I started out as a dancer. I wanted to be a dancer, and I became a musician in order to fund my dancing.
Oh.
So I started as so all the protocol and the format of the class and everything I already knew when I started as an accompanist.
Yeah.
So, which is a great advantage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions?
Let me say a quick thing.
Yeah.
I think, first of all, this was a great way to end. Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, the way that you brought everything together. I guess I have a couple notes. I think I'm just going to ask you personally, or just give them to you.
Absolutely.
But are you ever? I know that specifically for the purposes of the process, you're focusing on ballet.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a point where you think you might teach these accompanist techniques to people outside of the ballet world?
So, big answer, hopefully yes, eventually. But the way it works at the Conservatoire is we have a program called Modern Ballet, and they have to do, we would call it contemporary, but you guys understand it as modern. They have to do a chunk of that, but it is really ballet focused. And so the Piano for Dance program really is a ballet-centric program, and I still think it's right that it's called Piano for Dance, because the skills that I have learned for the ballet environment, I have been able to transfer, and I do accompany contemporary classes. Usually when the musicians they normally have can't make it, they're like, all right, we'll call her. But yeah, I do accompany contemporary classes, and I definitely use those skills. It took a minute to kind of recalibrate, because not only is it a different format, but it's a much more variable format than the ballet class. It really is, there's so many more ways I've seen a modern class kind of play out. So yeah, to actually answer your question, I would really like at some point to kind of be able to expand and kind of teach accompaniment skills and sort of studio thinking skills, I guess, to more styles of dance. However, at this stage in my career, ballet is just something I know way more about. And I would not really feel entitled to speak on what the vibes are in a contemporary setup or like any other kind of environment, because I just have less experience. I also, by virtue of my cousin, who I'm really close with, she was a first artist with Scottish Ballet from the ages of 19 to 27. So I really got a kind of social induction into like the dancer community through that sort of personal connection, which I think has also fueled my interest in like the work that I'm doing. So at the moment, it's just kind of ballet focused, but I think whatever, like the more opportunities sort of come my way and the more experience I develop, I would love to eventually expand. Oh.
While I'm carrying the mic, I want to mention that Mariana confirmed that she was a dancer and became a musician, and is a Spanish pianist who was also a dancer, and he is fantastic. Kiko Franco.
Ooh. Cool.
Also, Andy.
Andy Warshaw.
Yeah, Andy Warshaw.
Was a dance? Oh,
Danced for 5 years professionally.
wow.
Well, I just wanted to say that as a dancer, it was always the pianist to me who was the most important person in the room because they played the music, and depending on how they played, would just direct the way you would do your class that day, you know, and it always would lift your spirit or change your mood and help you to perform better.
Yeah.
So I'm amazed that you were saying in your talk that, you know, I don't know, it seemed like you weren't confident about your place in the room, but the pianist is, the accompanist is so important in a dance class for dancers because it's the music that motivates us, you know.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really lovely. And I have heard from you know, other ballet teachers, you know, the pianist is the most important. We have teachers who say that reverence is the most important part of the class, which always makes me go, don't look at me. But like, I think I have been fortunate to have teachers that are, like you, very, very appreciative of live accompaniment. And also there's the acknowledgement in Harriet Cavalli's book. She says, you know, that the accompanist has the power to make or break the class. And I think with great power comes great responsibility. You know, we have a lot of power to totally affect the mood of the room, and most of us kind of use that for good rather than evil. But I think, speaking about the confidence stuff, I mean, when I first stepped in like a kind of professional ballet studio, so when I rocked up for Piano for Dance and was suddenly in these vocational classes and in company class, I was 22. And I think a lot of the confidence stuff was just being 22 years old. And I think, again, it's like funny because I was just talking about how with ballet and children and training children, that kind of steeping them in the culture is sort of just part of their overall child development. And I kind of think that was the same experience for me, like becoming inducted into the world of professional ballet also just coincided with my early 20s. So it's kind of hard to disentangle what parts were like crazy ballet stuff and what parts were just like, I am 23 years old and like, you know, who's got it together at 23? It's hard to know what's what, and actually kind of reflecting on some of that now is part of the autoethnographic project, kind of looking into that. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I don't know if this is 100% fully formed, but it makes me pause. You know, it's interesting how, you know, you have these experiences and they, you know, they make you reflect. I have always been extremely uncomfortable in a class when someone calls me maestro.
Oh my God.
I'm
just like, you don't know my name.
It's this like, yeah, it feels, and in a sense this goes, you know, those quotes from the book you were talking about, that, it's like, are you reifying the music at the expense of the person sometimes? And like, does that sometimes come into this ethos of like great individuals rather than like community and social aspects? So I sometimes think that those can come into play in this. It's like,
yeah, I understand. It's just, even when you said the word maestro there, it like elicited a physical response. I don't know, and like people might have different opinions on this, and you know, it's going to be different across different contexts, but I think it's like a hangover from like a different era of like what we kind of imagined like the artist or the musician or the sort of the artisan, like what we kind of imagine about who that person is. So it just, to me, it just, yeah, it feels like a relic from a time that I am like not from. But yeah, when maestro comes, or maestra for me, but it always, I took Italian at school, I know. But my gut reaction is like, you've forgotten my name. So, but, and it's probably, maybe sometimes it is that, but like, probably not always. But yeah, I think it does kind of maybe take away from the sort of equal collaborator status of people in the room.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a tricky thing.
Something in the chat.
I think Mariana might have had a comment.
Cool.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes? Great. Well, thank you very much. It has been super inspiring in the whole conference. And thanks, Lucy, for such a clarity in your thoughts and your analysis of the job. And well, I would love to be there and speak with everyone, of course. If we have to be online, we have some chats here and there. And I mean, I had so many thoughts listening to Lucy and also John today, speaking about the crisis and so yeah, many things. I would like to share a thought that is always in my mind when I work with dancers in dance. John, please, we need to stop with the trying to introduce the I.
Amen.
Very complicated already, so we have to stop. You know, I tried when I became the president, I tried to put an easier name, that Dance Musician Organization, but didn't succeed. So
Mariana,
I surrendered to the name.
that I can get a job in this field again someday.
We'll add it.
But if it's not going to do that, we're not going to worry about it.
I don't think she could hear you.
Okay. I said, if it won't help me get a job someday as a dance musician, then we'll forget it. That's my argument.
Good, no, just a thought that I want to, that I also have always in my thoughts, that I think musicians, we tend to be very intellectual and very analytical, which is, I mean, it's our profession. We work with our ideas and visualization of music, and then we put it into our hands, into our rhythms. And we are always in our brains, like thinking
I am.
Yeah, I like to think about this. Sometimes we get very lost in our ideas, and we have to think like, okay, how this rhythm feels in my body, how this feeling, how this melody feels in my body. Yeah, that's something. This is also very, very esoteric.
I think Lucy's chomping at the bit. She's got some for you.
I was just going to say, I'm desperate to respond to this. Thank you so much, Mariana. This is one of the things that is so wonderful about speaking to an expert audience who are all involved in the field, because, Mariana, you are so right, and I could not have articulated that better myself. The body thing was such... I didn't cover it in this because I kind of wanted to keep this quite like jovial, but the body thing was a real propelling force for me wanting to do this. And again, it's hard to know because I was like coming into this in my early 20s, and that's like a crazy time all around. But I think it took me till about like not that long ago to accept that I just like had a body. And like even just like outside, like not related to my job, just like in general, I feel like I spent the first like 27 years of my life like running from the fact that I had like a physical form and always just trying to like outbrain myself. And it's been actually so liberating to just try and like get rid of that. And like, I think you're so right that I think that because we work with people that are so in tune with their body, and the body is the thing, and it's all about the body, it's really easy to forget, as someone who's like not having to do all that in that space, it's easy to forget that like, oh, we also have bodies, we also need to stretch and get up and walk around if we've been like sitting down. We also get injured. It's like, you know, it's a physical piece of, you know, it's a physical job. The body thing came to a head for me when I was about 15 groups deep into a pirouette from the corner. And I was like, I really need to go to the toilet. And I was like, but no one is checking in with me. They're just coming and coming and coming in their groups, and then they're going to the left and they're going again to the right. And if any of them need to go to the toilet, they can just nip out and another group come back. The teacher is like in charge, so she can nip out, or he can, you know, whoever it is. I was like, I'm trapped. And no one is even, you know, and actually such a kind of act, a moment I'm so thankful for. I don't know if anyone knows Daria Klementova from the Czech Republic. She was a kind of, I think she was with English National like back in the day, and now she does ballet master classes in Prague. That's like her big thing. And she's a kind of renowned guest teacher. And she came to Scottish Ballet, and I remember, I think again it was like pirouettes from the corner, it was something, or it might have been Pitié, like it was something like really long. And she came up to me as I was playing, and she was like, "Are you okay? Do you need anything?" And I was like, oh my God. And it made me realize, like, wait, that should be normal maybe? But yeah, the body thing is so important, and it can be so easy to forget that we are as physical people as the dancers, and just because we are like using our bodies in a different way in that context doesn't make us any less physical beings. So yeah, thank you, Mariana, for bringing that up, because that's like something that I love talking about.
Great. I would like to say one more thing, if it's possible.
Yeah.
I'm also giving courses to ballet teachers and pianists all together. And I think if it is a relationship, like therapy relationship.
Yes.
Because it's really like two people that love each other, but they have some problems, communication problems. And I think I did because it's like, okay, this is something beautiful, and the pianist is like, okay, what is beautiful for you, you know? So it's kind of terminology that they use and we don't understand, and what does it mean, and so many different things. So I think it's also important to, when we have the time and the confidence, for me it's like a relationship. Let's start with the things that you work, and you know that work. You know, like when you meet someone, you don't start saying your secrets or your traumas. You have a normal conversation, and little by little, you create a deeper relationship, and you have more time to speak about things and to try to like that. So I think it's also important to think how to create a relationship with the dance teachers, in ballet or modern or in a creative process. So like a relationship, you know, you meet someone, you are polite, you are diplomatic, you know, you do the things that you know that works socially, and then little by little maybe you can expand this and create a place with deeper things and complex things.
Yeah.
So I like to think like a relationship, you know, because at the end we are humans and we have the movement and but we think about music and movement in different ways.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that's kind of, you know, I was saying earlier, like, don't play all your cards at once. I think that really, like, comes into that, and I agree about if you kind of work with the same people over time, you'll eventually kind of be able to have, like, really productive conversations. Thank you. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you. Oh, sure. Thank you, Lucy. I will not be trying my hand at stand-up comedy. You may have noticed I struggle up here to be like, oh, they're looking, oh, it's time now. Thank you all so much for being here, and yeah, we've got a great dinner planned at Hal & Mal's downtown, and we've got some musicians who are going to join us, one of whom has been a ballet musician, so he's kind of excited to meet you all. Before we break right now or sometime during dinner, we might be able to arrange some rides tomorrow to the airport, so just kind of check in on there's a couple people I don't have flight times for, but yeah, I just have something I'll put in my spreadsheet there, and we can kind of figure out I know there's several people going at 6 p.m. Anyhow, yeah. Do we have a ride to the place, the dinner place? Yes, thank you for asking. So we've got about an hour. We have the place at 6 o'clock. So I can come by the Peachtree Hotel at 1:45, let's say. So you'll have a minute to go home, change, do whatever you need to do, and I'll have the Bellhaven van. We've established that it is, well, you can stand up in it and you can fit a drum set in it. Not in cases, but set up. So these are things to look forward to. Yeah, so.
So I can bring my drum set?
You can. We encourage you to.
Just this. One last thing is say hello and goodbye, and we'll see you soon to all the people out there in Zoom world. We love you. Thank you for attending remotely, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Jeff and Owen, for organizing this. Can you hear me? No?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much, Owen, Jeff, and all the team involved. You have done a great conference. The online thing worked very, very well. You fixed all the problems. Jeff, thank you so much. You are a master on this. And Owen, I know you put so much time and effort and worries, so thank you so much for making this happen, Owen.
Thank you. You're welcome. And Kevin Partridge, we won't make you say something.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.